Welcome to the latest episode of Sharp Sharp with me, Rob Rose, editor of Currency News, and Zuks, Zukile Majova, who is a genius and political analyst and fabulous writer from Scrolla.Africa. Zuks, great to be here again. It's been a great week, yeah?
Yeah, like every other week, Rob. Very interesting. It's busy in Ukompo, which is now East London. Julius Malema is there shaking as sentence is about to be given out. Interesting times indeed.
But I mean, Julius Malema, he's basically on trial for this incident where he shot a firearm into the air. I mean, I don't foresee any kind of any jail sentence for this, right?
Well, he was found guilty. It should come with a sentence, but in this particular case,
not a custodial sentence.
Yeah, there are a number of weaknesses in the state case. The fact that they didn't bring somebody from the thousands of people who were in that rally who would have said, I was very scared, I actually saw bullets flying, etc. That kind of witness would have made the case quite strong. But also the bodyguard was found not guilty, just allowed to walk away completely. The gun itself is not there, it's not been submitted as an exhibit. So there are a number of witnesses here. We are probably looking at a suspended sentence.
I do wonder though what impact the fact that when Jacob Zuma got a custodial sentence was actually imprisoned for defying the Zondo Commission back in 2021. This caused an outbreak of massive, crises across the country. We had huge unrest. I do wonder if that kind of thing plays on the judge's mind. You don't want a repeat of a politician causing the whole country to burn, right?
We definitely hope it doesn't play on the judge's mind. At least we outside of it can think about it. The politicians can think about it. A security cluster can think about it. A judge or a magistrate must not find themselves in a situation where they have to think about those things. They need to give out the sentence, a fair sentence, and not worry about what happens outside.
But the point is that, you're a judge. You have to have a sense of what the potential implications are of any sentence you hand down, and certainly the implications for the country if a major politician like Julius Malema was imprisoned. Does that not weigh on your mind? Should it not weigh on your mind?
It shouldn't, Rob. I'm quite scared about where you're going with these questions. It should not. We can't be a thug state. If you are known that you can unleash your violent hand, so now we must be scared of you. That's nonsense.
Yes, no, you shouldn't be allowed to intimidate judges to create them.
And also, I mean, Gukombo is not like Johannesburg. It's not very central. It's not like Durban or Johannesburg or Cape Town, really, where you can really do whatever you're trying to do. It's not gonna happen.
So it's not worried about where you're going there. Are you saying it's okay to let that burn because it's not a major metropolis?
We saw 2 weeks ago there was a major march there about a group of Nigerians who crowned their king in the Eastern Cape, and my people are very angry about it. So it's been a busy town, Gukompo, but this time around, I don't think it's gonna burn.
Well, this is our third edition of this particular podcast, and it was really great to see. We had a shout out from Mac G last week, right?
Oh yeah, Mac G listened to our podcast. I was talking to him, and he approves.
Okay, well, I suppose, So let's get on to the subject of the day, which I suppose the obvious thing is if we're going and talking about opposition parties, we might as well talk about the Democratic Alliance, the second largest party in the country. It had, 24% in the last election, and they had their electoral conference this week to elect new leadership for the whole party. I mean, perhaps, Zuks, you could just give us a sort of a brief summary of what happened there and why it's significant.
Very interesting times for the DA. It's a transition, really. I mean, people are hoping that it's a break from the DA of Tony Leon, the DA of Helen Zille. You remember the fight back strategy as an election strategy. Many people were offended by that. Fight back against what? Fight back against majority governments, etc. So it's a break. He's a younger guy who's grown up now in a new South Africa. Is not he doesn't have that Swart thing. So you would expect him to bring in a whole new energy in the DA, and hopefully being able to attract a lot of young black middle class people, post-university people. It's going to be difficult for Geordin Hill-Lewis. There's no question about it. He's got a tough job coming up. Replacing somebody like Helen Zille as the face of the DA is largely unknown in the country. A lot of people don't know him. Only in the Western Cape, they know him. I'm not sure if in the Western Cape, the black townships embrace him yet. So you can imagine how tough his job is going to be.
But Geordin Hill-Lewis is seen as something of a break from the previous the previous regime. I mean, he certainly is far more charismatic than you would say John Steenhuisen was, and he performs well in front of the cameras. So he's got a lot of personal charisma that allows him to play better. But you said that it would allow a potential break from the past, but essentially, here's another white guy taking charge of a party that many people feel just hasn't transformed, that is still run by white men. Is this sufficient enough of a break? I'm not sure it is. I mean, I feel that if they really want to embrace black voters and demonstrate that this is not a party of the past, they need to change the complexion of their leadership.
Not necessarily. There was a time, Rob, when the DA could now be ready for more black leaders, even a female black leader in the line of Mazibuko, who was really a very powerful leader, very competent in parliament and everywhere else, but also a very likable person, So there is a momentum there where they've lost. And if you look around now, even if you were to make that argument and say they should have a black leader, you won't be able to come up with the answer of who that black leader should be, because there isn't one. This is probably, from what they have, this is their best foot forward.
I don't think there's any dispute that Geordin Hill-Lewis is perhaps the strongest candidate, but it's the message it sends to the voters of a party that seems stuck, in the mid-20s. It needs to elevate itself, and if it wants to be a serious contender, it needs to prove that it's not a party of the past. Is it sufficiently? Do voters really care about that? And should the DA have moved faster on that?
If you are going for the black vote, and also their approach as well is about going door to door now. If you go to my grandmother's house and a big white man is knocking at her door, she is not going to be very welcoming, So again, that's
so is
different.
Your argument we should get small white men to go or not?
My green. But on a different situation, if Helen Zille was knocking at her door, she would definitely open. Helen Zille, she's lived with Xhosa people. She's so loud. She would be at the gate. Molweni. That's how she is. Xhosa people are very affectionate. They are very friendly people. So she has that. There is no way anyone wouldn't open a door for Helen Zille. So that's the experience. And that's a big difference between Geordin Hill-Lewis and Helen Zille.
We saw Helen Zille at the DA conference singing along to Bull and Lela, the Brenda Fassie song.
Exactly.
I mean, she's quite charismatic and she gets into it. But she does rub people up the wrong way, and I think that she's got a very abrasive style of governing, which makes it easy for ANC leaders sometimes to attack her.
Yeah, I think when you start getting into DA policy in general, you're going to start having problems. I think what she's doing now, she's not talking about policy. She's talking about, we can fix this, we can fix that, we can fix that. And that's what local government elections are all about. They are not about ideology. They're not about the DA stand on Israel and all of that. It's about whether you can fix the town, actually improve chances of investors coming through. People need jobs. People need clean drinking water. I pay for water from my tap. I then go out to go and buy water to drink, because the water coming out of my tap that I paid for is actually too dirty to drink.
Yeah. Helen Zille, I mean, she's been doing a lot of campaigning in the last week. We saw her in a sort of a kayaking down a road where a pipe had burst and hadn't been fixed. It makes great theatre, and I think she's doing a fantastic job of leveraging up the Joburg's service delivery crisis for votes. And the thing is, she only needs 490,000 votes to win a majority in Joburg. That's not a huge amount, right? I mean, that's very doable.
Yeah. Look, she's probably the best candidate so far. Her campaign it's been going on now since September last year. She's ahead of everybody. The ANC has not even been able to tell us who's going to be the mayoral candidate. And those are the issues of what's going on within the ANC. She doesn't have that kind of baggage. She's free, but also her approach to the problems of Joburg it's very normal. It's like it's our everyday experience, but also it's about somebody who comes out as loving the city, being in love with the city of Joburg, remembering it from early days and all of that. She's that kind of person, and Joburgers are going to like her.
Geordin Hill-Lewis, after he won, he spoke of a trust deficit with black voters. And what was interesting is that he said, and I think this is to some extent a break from the past. He said that you can't really blame the voters for this. We have to take it on board as the party and change it for ourselves, which showed a degree of introspection that I think often has been lacking, perhaps from the DA. But I do think that's right. That trust deficit with black voters has been massive, and I think that hasn't been helped to some extent by the DA's messaging around black empowerment. The DA is very clear when it speaks that it doesn't want to abandon transformation, but it believes this particular model of black empowerment is flawed, and it would rather focus on people who previously disadvantaged and people who don't have access to skills, rather than say, an oligarch who might be black just because he's black. So it's a very nuanced argument to sell to voters, but surely that doesn't help them in black communities where it might seem like the DA just wants to abandon all transformation efforts. That's certainly what the ANC will play it up as.
I don't think it's possible. Even if the DA were to win, I don't think it's possible to actually abandon the transformation laws. I always say when people make extreme things about the country, I always say we've got the constitution in this country, we've got laws. It doesn't matter who runs the government; they have to run it along the constitution. There are human rights here. There's just not enough room to totally walk away. That's why the DA is not saying totally abandon. They're saying that this kind of BE situation doesn't work, and that's what ordinary people are saying. Ordinary black people are saying that, even in villages, the tender system. Some people want to completely do away with the tender system, empower municipalities to be able to fix their roads, fix the potholes, paint the lines in the evening. Towns used to do that when they were run by town clerks, not these now new big names like municipal manager and all of that. Towns used to work. People want to go back to that.
You've seen the ANC. They will absolutely, as you imagine any opposition party would do, they will absolutely make hay with the DA's confused messaging sometimes around black empowerment. And certainly we've seen in the last week, Kusela Diko, the president's former spokesperson, saying, referencing all of Helen Zille's campaigning and the fact that she was swimming through potholes and saying, she's fantastic in opposition, let's keep her in opposition, which is quite cynical and smart. But it does show you that the ANC will absolutely notices what Helen Zille is doing, and they're absolutely going to try and counter it. And they will play up the DA's opposition to black empowerment to alienate black voters from the party. Is that not a clear strategy from the ANC?
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, wherever Helen Zille goes, immediately the next morning or that very same afternoon, Joburg Roads Agency or Johannesburg Water will be there to fix that particular situation. Yesterday we saw her being dragged in a mini boat.
Exactly.
But that very same afternoon, there were trucks from JRA to fix that situation, suck the water out, cleaned out the stormwater drains, etc. And again, that tells you they are feeling the heat.
Is it, we did have a DA that to some extent did have black leadership, and a lot of them left at a certain stage. There was Lindiwe Mazibuko, who you referenced earlier. There was the fact that the party was actually run at some stage by Mmusi Maimane. Why is it that the DA has struggled to retain credible black leaders in strong leadership positions? Is it the party's messaging? Is it what is it about the DA that they've struggled to keep those leaders?
I think the DA, to an extent, when Helen Zille took the risk of getting as many young black leaders into the DA and putting them into leadership position, the response from the black middle class was not that quick. If you look at those election results about who actually came through, when Mmusi Maimane was there with Lindiwe Mazibuko and a lot of others, including Dr. Phala, for instance, powerful black figures as well. Soli was also still there at some point. Soli was mayor of Tshwane, etc. But the black vote did not come towards the DA. Even if you look just in recent times, what has happened with the bloodletting happening in the ANC, ANC has lost from 62% to 40%, but how much of that went to the DA? 15% of it has gone to MK Party, 10% has gone to EFF, that's 25% of what the ANC lost. So if you add those three parties, you are back at 65%. That tells you it's just that ANC disintegrating, the DA has not been able to capitalize on that. or the target audience of the DA within the black community has not been able to come to the party.
This is why I think the local government elections are going to be such an important, I suppose, barometer of what the DA has been able to achieve. Has it been able to sell its idea that we are the party that make things happen and fixes Joburg, for example? So I think that when this election happens, and if Helen Zille gets, a majority or close to majority, it'll be a sign that perhaps voters are prioritizing service over just ideology, perhaps.
Voters have been prioritizing service over ideology for a very long time. That's why almost all metros except East London, Gugompo, the latest metro, is run by the ANC. But all the metros are run by coalitions. That tells you the thinking has been shifting. West in Johannesburg, the ANC has got 33% of the vote here. That tells you about 66% of the vote belongs to opposition parties. That's why in the last local government election, it was Dr. Mpho Phalatse was able to form a government before the ANC could form a government. Form that government with a coalition, again, quite clearly reflecting the will of the voters. But obviously, smaller parties started bargaining and all of that, and the ANC is back in power with 33% of the vote, running an 85 billion rand municipality. It doesn't sound right.
But Zuks, I mean, you say that essentially that service delivery has become more important than ideology, but to some extent, the fact that the ANC still has quite large shares of the vote in certain places illustrates that message still hasn't been internalized by many people. The ANC will still retain a large part of the vote, even in the local government elections, despite the absolute chronic lack of service delivery, especially in large cities like Joburg. I mean, does that not indicate that we still have people who vote according to ideology rather than capacity, I suppose?
Not necessarily. I wouldn't say in my village, for instance, we vote according to ideology. Yes, we know what the ANC has done and all of that, but there's no DA branch in Mvuzi village in Mount Frank. So we don't interact with the DA at all. So you can imagine all of those villages, all of the villages in KZN, villages in Limpopo, etc. The DA is no longer a small party without a funding. They need to start being there. You need to start having that presence. When an entire village has got no water at all, the DA needs to be able to go to that village and partner with the private sector, dig a borehole. One borehole for one village is for life.
Yeah.
It makes a big difference. And every time people go and get the water, they will always remember that they had been without water for 30 years and somebody came through. So you don't see any of that. How are people going to vote for the DA then?
Can we shift the argument slightly towards the ANC from the DA? I mean, obviously, what I think is important is that in the DA election in the last week, they have elected people to lead the party who are, I think, on average, 22 years younger than the top 7 in the ANC. So you have a much younger party who is able to respond to people, who understands the younger imperatives of people in the country to a better extent than the ANC. How important is it that you have a much younger party? Does it make you more agile? Does it allow you to speak more acutely to the voters? I mean, why is that an important thing?
No, it's very important. That's why everybody's going to be looking at Hill-Lewis's leadership in terms of how many black people he's going to bring around him. I mean, he's young. He's got lots of black graduates within the DA. If you look at the DA youth, it's largely black, the leadership. But if you look at the top leadership of the DA, especially if you look at the Federal Council, it's still very white, it's still very old, etc. So he's going to bring in his influence, hopefully, and start making changes there. And when people see the real change, then you've got a chance of actually people following and buying it into it. Because, I mean, if you look now, he's going to have to do a lot of campaigning with people like Siviwe Kwahube, Soli Malatsi. Those are the people that he has to be with, but he still has that baggage. And as soon as he shakes that baggage off, it's gonna be easy for him. I was complaining that they didn't bring in Chris Pappas to the top leadership of the DA.
Yeah.
Here is a DA rising star. He's very young. People love him in his town of Umgeni in KZN. He didn't win that town with traditional DA voters. It was people who were tired of a lack of service delivery who then supported a new vision, and they stuck by it. Many efforts have been brought in to try and frustrate him out there. Even the demarcation board wanted to cut parts of the municipality and bring in another group from another section just to make sure that the DA does not get the votes that it does need. But he continues to lead with ordinary people. Look at that town. It's been resurfaced. The roads are clean. There are street lights. There are no street lights in many towns. Now, even in Joburg, there are no street lights at night. The work that Papas has done in Mngeni is amazing.
It's a superficial thing to some extent, but the fact that Chris Papas speaks Zulu, you know, in an absolutely authentic way, that is something that I think will help reduce that trust deficit, or increase it, you know, reduce that trust deficit that was spoken about. I mean, do you think that that's a valid criticism?
Yeah, absolutely. Even if you don't really speak the language very fluently, but also the appreciation of culture in the people, you know, that's what Chris Papas brings. You know, like I was saying, if Helen Zille is coming to anybody's home, you know, the language changes, the mannerism changes. You know, she becomes Mam'Nontsapho, which is a closer name. There's no way you wouldn't open your doors and your arms to her.
So there's not an oak called Harold who's like, let's come and talk now.
Exactly.
So, you know, I have a sense when you talk of the ANC compared to the DA right now, and there's a very, you know, if you were to think about this, the ANC at the moment looks like, you know, the last couple of decades of the Roman Empire. You know, it's something that has diminished. It has a sense of essentially, you know, a massive empire at one point, but which is just declining. And I think last week we had the report come out on Phala Phala, the Cyril Ramaphosa's farm, where $580,000 was stolen. And it just seems like every single person, including Ramaphosa, has scandals, has kind of, you know, baggage somewhere. It seems like the ANC just is a party that's in decline. I mean, is there any way to fix that, to change that impression? Because at the moment, it seems like even Ramaphosa, who was the guy supposed to, you know, clear the air for the ANC, hasn't done that.
Yeah, I mean, Rob, at this point, we should be worrying about the top leadership of the ANC. But actually, even if you look at the generation immediately after that, because the generation after that is the generation of Paul Mashatile, Zweli Mkhize, as I said, and now we're talking about people who really have scandals. But if you look at the generation after that, it's the generation of Fikile Mbalulas, the generation of Panyaza Lesufis, etc. Again, that generation has got its own problems. Even if you go below that particular generation, the like of Kusela, Diko, Sangoni, they come behind that particular generation, and they've been involved in the COVID money and all of that. So you're looking at a number of generations. Even after this, that's where the picture really becomes depressing.
I spoke to Herman Mashaba, the leader of Action SA this week, and he was saying that after the IPID report on Phala Phala, Ramaphosa cannot claim that he didn't know what had happened there, that that there was clearly illegal activities happening from his own security force, and that he should there must be a consequence to that. And I do wonder if the fact that Ramaphosa hasn't been axed, the people are willing to allow him to stay at the ANC is because of the fact that there's nobody else to take control. Nobody, you know, there's hardly any actual talent left in the ANC at the moment.
Ramaphosa is not a leader. Everybody knows that. I think he knows that. You know, when they made him leader, there was nobody. He's not a decisive leader. He's not a Thabo Mbeki. He's not somebody who's just going to take the problem by the scruff of the neck and wrestle with it. He's not that type of guy. You know, when there's a problem, he's going to call a commission just to kick the can down the road for as long as possible. You know, that's not the kind of leader that you want. But during this transition, coming out of years and years of state capture, his job has been one, stop state capture, try to turn the ship around and begin a process of creating some form of economic growth and economic stability. The next leader, if it comes from this particular camp, this particular faction, has got a real chance of growing the economy. And that's why they're looking at Patrice Motsepe.
Yes, but they're also looking at people like, you know, the existing deputy president, Paul Mashatile. I mean, it's going to be a massive fight. I think Mashatile doesn't realize that he's not in the running like a lot of the polls do. The polls say that essentially that Patrice Motsepe is far ahead. But I think if you would ask Paul Mashatile who's going to be the next president, he will say it's himself. Surely,
I think he's very aware of how far behind he is when it comes to when you compare with somebody like Patrice Motsepe. Even without Patrice Motsepe setting a foot in the race, he's already way ahead. But you're looking at what's going on now with Paul Mashatile, you can see that he's sorting out his house. You can see now who are going to be the people leading his campaign. If you look at what's happening in Gauteng, for instance, there's an open revolt against the GNU, against Ramaphosa in Gauteng. There's no question about it. You can see that those are Paul's people. Those are part of the Alex Mafia that we have known about for many, many years. So Paul's campaign is in motion.
It'll be fascinating to see how that works out. I mean, Ramaphosa has still a couple of years left, and what he can do, I suppose, he's obviously dealt with state capture, but is hire and people to actually do the work for him. And we had a situation this week where he decided to elect Rolf Meyer, the former National Party minister, to be the ambassador to the US. That's a big deal, right?
Of course. But first of all, I wouldn't say Ramaphosa's got many years. If he does very badly this election, he's going to be in serious trouble. And next year is an elective congress of the ANC. If he loses that, he's obviously going to be recalled in early 2008. So he doesn't have many years. Now, back to the issue of Rolf Meyer. Funny enough, I know this one splits the room, just like the GNU in 1994, post-94 GNU.
People but Rolf Meyer was part of creating the GNU then.
People, even within the white community, said he's a sellout. Even within the black community, people said Nelson Mandela and Cyril Ramaphosa were sellouts. This is what the GNU does. And now, many years later, we've got a new GNU. And there's the SACP walking out the door saying that these guys are sellouts, etc. Many people are unhappy with John Steenhuisen, for instance, calling him a sellout after his performance at the White House. This is what the GNU does. But a guy like Rolf Meyer, at least he's going to be able to be received in the US. They will give him a platform. They will hear him out. And I expect him to be able to communicate our situation right now to the American policymakers, obviously clear out this whole thing about the genocide.
But, the thing about Rolf Meyer is that he still fundamentally is a politician. I mean, he's somebody who's not, if you were sending somebody to negotiate with Donald Trump, you might, hire a golf player to go and be the ambassador. I mean, is a politician who is essentially quite a rational human being to some extent enough to placate Donald Trump to fix a relationship with South Africa that's absolutely imploded over the past year?
I'll tell you what was not going to work, Rob, is a career diplomat. If we had taken a career diplomat, especially from the whole list that you have from the ANC, move it somebody, that was not going to work. I think we've got a better chance now with Rolf Meyer. And obviously, he has a lot of work to do because this relationship has been going downhill since February last year, and we thought that Mcebisi Jonas was going to come through the president's special envoy, and that has not worked. A lot of work needs to be done here. Relations have become worse now with the war in Iran.
Yeah.
This man has got a lot of work to do, Rob. He needs to get to America as quickly as possible and get on with the job.
Is Rolf Meyer the guy who will go to America and be able to discuss why South Africa needs transformation, where black empowerment comes from? I mean, I'm not sure if he's the kind of guy who will be able to defend that.
I don't think the issue of black empowerment is an issue that you need to raise as significantly as we are raising it in South Africa. It's very much of a domestic issue, but international companies know that when they invest in various countries, etc., there are certain laws, not as extreme as in our situation where we have to lose 30% of your investment, but to an extent that's quite normal. Even if you look at what Elon Musk is trying to do in South Africa, Starlink is saying that we have got presence all over the globe. This is not new. We know about it. We know what is expected of us. What we do not know, what we will not accept is a situation where you've got to break down the shareholdership of the company. That one is unusual. But obviously, there are ways of meeting those BE requirements, saying do projects in the communities which they are prepared to do. And if you're looking at what they are talking about, over 2 million kids are going to have access to the internet. That immediately takes South Africa's education to many, many years advancement. Can you believe we're still delivering textbooks to every single school when you can get an iPad and get all the textbooks in the iPad and all of that? There are many things that Starlink can do for education in South Africa.
Well, that's the point. I mean, Elon Musk this week, he had a massive argument with numerous South Africans on his special echo chamber called Twitter, where he attacked South Africa for the fact that, he wasn't allowed to, he had to sell a share in Starlink to be able to get a license to operate in South Africa. So he attacked black empowerment, making it, you say it's a local thing, but essentially it's become a very global thing. And America specifically, and the White House administration, is very aware of black empowerment. They have obviously conducted this huge tirade against, empowerment and DEI and any of that. But the fact is, Elon Musk has made it a global phenomenon.
If you are being asked, Rob, to give up 30% of your entire life's work, you would not be a happy person. In any case, even black South Africans are saying that these particular provisions need to be reviewed. Even if you look at the whole thing about BEA, you take 30% and you give it to an individual because he's liked in Lutuli House, and hopefully sometimes when you are in political trouble, he will intervene. That thing doesn't work. You could take that share and give it to 100,000 black people, even 1 million black people. That's real empowerment. Then those people organize themselves into groups of small farming. We are planting cabbage in the Eastern Cape, we're raising sheep here, etc. We're that kind of grouping, and you get part of that particular share. So you have a situation where almost 1 million people own 30% of the shares. To have a single individual who's already a multi-million or a multi-billionaire in the case of the Ramaphosa McDonald's deal is not fair.
No, absolutely. I mean, Elon Musk, you have to say he's a master of disinformation, and he's not a wonderful human being, but he's certainly absolutely correct in this particular case on Starlink and BE. What he has said here is that, if you were to allow us to operate in South Africa, Starlink, we will be able to install Starlink and help out what did he say? It was
more than 5,000 schools.
5,000 schools, 2.4 million school kids would get access to Starlink. I mean, that is absolutely real empowerment. Whereas Kusela Diko, who's the ANC member of parliament who heads the communications committee, has said, no, this isn't right. We need real empowerment. This is moving things backwards. But the truth is, this is a very obvious thing. You either are going to empower one individual who's going to get 30% of a company, or you're going to help out 2.4 million kids. It seems like a no-brainer. I think Elon Musk has absolutely shown how completely messed up black empowerment has become.
Yeah, and to say that deal is not just 5 years or 10 years, it's permanent. Again, if you identify schools that are not performing, that are in trouble and all of that, and immediately say these are the guys who must get Starlink activations, good Lord, it's a big thing, Rob. I tell you, a few years ago in my village, we got electricity, Rob.
A few years ago?
Yes. I grew up with no electricity, Rob. I finished high school with no electricity and all of that, and came.
Not just load shedding, actual no electricity.
No electricity, no nothing, no pylons going to my village, And I came to work in Johannesburg, and when I was here, they phoned me. Hey, Eskom is coming in. I was like, what? And when I finally got home and there was electricity, it's a game changer, Rob. So you can imagine now connectivity, what it means to young people today. What Starlink is proposing is a game changer.
So I think that the World Bank said that every extra 10% of the population get access to broadband internet improves the GDP of the country by 1.2%. That means more jobs. That means you revive a country that was doing fantastically well 20 years ago, which has gone nowhere economically for the last 20 years. So Zuks, is our final assessment that Elon Musk might be completely wrong in many things and might not be a great individual, but he's correct about Starlink and black empowerment.
Yeah, I think we're concentrating too much on Elon Musk, the person, as opposed to dealing with Starlink, the business.
Okay. Well, that's all for today. It's been fascinating to talk about all these things. And next week we'll have more arguments about Elon Musk and what's happening with the DA.